Welcome to Gene's Reviews, where I basically do whatever the hell I want. You think you had a bad day at work? I'll bet it's nothing compared to these guys.
We've all made mistakes at work here and there, but some people genuinely take it to a whole other level. From signing gibberish to lying about being sick, here are 15 people who had their first and last day at work. Number 1. Woman who signed gibberish. In 2017, a woman named Darylyn Roberts took a job as an interpreter during a Florida news conference. As Tampa Police Chief Brian Dugan announced the arrest of Howell Donaldson, Roberts was there beside him making signs that made no sense.
So she doesn't
Rachel
even know how to
Settembrino,
sign.
An ASL teacher at the University of South Florida, said that Roberts sat up there and waved her arms like she was singing Jingle Bells. Amongst the things that Roberts signed, according to Settembrino, was the following: 51 hours ago, 01222, murder, 3 minutes and 14 weeks ago, in old, murder, 45, 55,000, plea 10, arrest, murder, Bush, 3, age 24. Tampa Police Department spokesman Steve Haggerty said that Roberts just showed
really
up and
screw
told
up
him
the
that she was there
investigation.
to provide the sign language interpretation at their November 28th news conference. He assumed that someone else at the department had called for the service that it uses for interpreters. Roberts would be questioned by the police for her actions, although there is no news on whether or not she spent any time behind bars. The Daily Mail also revealed that police records showed that she had previous convictions for grand theft and burglary. She had even served a 5-year sentence on a felony fraud conviction before being released in 2016. Talk about lying on the resume, but still getting the job. Number 2, BBC News reporter accidentally inhales drugs. In 2010, Quentin Somerville, a BBC reporter, was on the job in the Middle East when he was reporting on a massive pile of drugs being burned by authorities when he got high inhaling the fumes. After accidentally inhaling the fumes,
that could be a good day,
all Somerville could get through before bursting into some serious giggles. He tried several more times to get through the taped segment, but could not produce anything but laughs. According to the Telegraph, Somerville sent out the blooper reel to his followers, noting that, after a year of bullets and bloodshed, he offered the video as a Christmas laugh at my expense.
So they never shared.
BBC,
they never aired
in a
it.
Statement wanted to make it very clear that the 4-year-old footage never made it onto the air, and I guess that we can all see why. Number 3, money spills on freeway. An armored truck spilled a huge wad of cash across a California freeway, prompting chaotic scenes as drivers stopped to scoop up banknotes. One of the doors popped open and
that
some
would
bags
be
of cash
really,
fell out.
really chaotic.
California Highway Patrol officer Curtis Martin would tell a local news outlet. Some of the bags broke apart in the lanes, and there was cash all across the lanes. Demi Bagby, a social media personality and athlete with over 2 million followers, even posted a video of herself at the scene, showing the cash strewn about on the ground. You don't
post it.
Videos posted to social media would show people who were dashing around on the roadway, scooping up money, and even throwing handfuls of cash into the air in celebration. Reporter Melissa Adden, who was at the scene, tweeted photos of the aftermath, saying that all that was left on the scene were money bands from the armored truck. Several folks were seen pulling over to search for money. She would
wonder how much money was lost.
And CHP reminds us that you can still be arrested for taking this money and urges anyone who did pick money up to return it. It is safe to say that whoever was behind the wheel that day probably had their last day at work. Number 4, paramedics announcement fail. Now, if you didn't know that July 8th is International Paramedics Day, you'd never forget it after watching this hilarious announcement. 2022 is the first year this day is being used to recognize and celebrate the hardworking paramedics of the world, and to raise awareness, 2 paramedics at the East of England Ambulance Service made a video for social media, which would prove to be much more challenging than they imagined. Every time that Dave Tamero tried starting the video with, "Hello everybody, welcome," his colleague Joe Cartwright began to laugh.
Hello everybody, welcome to...
In a Facebook video the ambulance service shared, it seems that it took them many tries to get past that part. After moving to a new location, Dave and Joe could finally get past their introduction, but not by much.
At least it's not live. They don't have to post
answer the question, what's it like being a paramedic with something other than "it's good." Despite their difficulties finishing the video, their efforts certainly did not go to waste. They used all of the hilarious footage to raise awareness for International Paramedics Day, although certainly not in the way that they had planned. Number 5. Bank intern caught lying. If you're calling out of work to attend a party, the least that you can do is not post the pictures online.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, this bank intern would learn the lesson the hard way. An intern at Anglo-Irish Bank, Kevin Colvin, emailed his boss, Paul Davis, saying that he had to return to New York City because something had come up. His boss granted his request, but it turns out that something was a Halloween party in Worcester, Massachusetts. One of the intern's co-workers found this freshly posted picture on his Facebook page, an image of Colvin dressed up as a green fairy, a wand in one hand, and a Bud Light in the other. You can already guess what happened next. That co-worker snitched on him, and unfortunately Colvin's boss got word of his lie. Kevin's boss then responded to the following email the next day, even CCing in the rest of the employees, as he fired Colvin shortly after. Yikes! Number 6.
Whenever I called in, when I was younger, if I called into work or something like that, most of the time I just stayed home. Just to be safe. There were times that I left, and I was always paranoid, though, that someone that I work with might see me that had the day off or something like that, and I might get caught. So most of the time I just stayed home. Just lounged around and watched TV or something like that, like calling in, like not going to school. I used to do that, too. I missed the bus on purpose. Call my mom at work and say, "Mom, I missed the bus. I can't go to school." Well, I guess you gotta stay home, man.
Refrigerator delivery fail. 2 men would be delivering a refrigerator to a home when everything that could have gone wrong did. The incident, caught on the home's CCTV,
They should lay it
captures the 2
down.
men lifting the fridge up the stairs. And as they approach the top of the stairs, the man at the bottom misses a step, causing the refrigerator to come tumbling down and losing
That looks
one
like an
side of the door.
expensive
Given the weight
refrigerator, too.
imbalance, it seemed inevitable. And now, I'm no expert, but it seems to me that the guy at the bottom had to put in twice as much effort as the one at the top. And on top of that, the fridge was not on a dolly. Perhaps the delivery guys could have avoided this incident if the refrigerator had been tilted toward the stairs and had been appropriately strapped. Fortunately, no one would be hurt, but this incident will
There are
definitely
ways
be
to do
tricky
it.
to explain to the customer. Number 7. Woman caught at soccer match. Nina Faruqi was a digital content coordinator whose friend was able to score tickets to the Euro 2020 semifinal soccer game. Thinking that it was unlikely she would be granted the day off to attend, she called in sick to work so that she could go and watch the match. After arriving at Wembley
Something
Stadium
that's
for
going to
the
be
game,
televised.
she and her
That's what I'm
friend
talking
realized
about.
that they had great
You're bound to
seats.
get caught.
The seats were in a perfect spot to see the action, but this also meant that they were in a direct shot of cameras capturing the game. Faruqi was initially worried about being seen, but said that she figured she wouldn't be seen in the crowd of 66,000 people. She thought that she might have gotten away with calling in sick, but later found out that she and her friend had been captured on television celebrating. It was not long before her bosses would see it as well, and they called her less than 12 hours later, telling her not to come back to
you
work
definitely
as
get
she had
fired
breached
for it.
her employment contract by lying. If there's one thing not to do when you manage to get out of work, this would be it. Perhaps Faruqi might have had better luck if she didn't have such superb seats at the game. Number 8. Car delivery gone wrong. This video serves as a reminder of why you should only sign for a vehicle once the keys are in your hand and you've thoroughly inspected
Well,
every
yeah,
inch of it.
they'd have to have
One
it unloaded for
unfortunate
me.
customer in the Netherlands captured the delivery of
parked
his
and
new
everything.
Audi A3 on video, but disaster would strike as the delivery driver who was unloading it off the truck attempted to pull into the driveway. The delivery was going smoothly initially, with the truck driver backing the A3 off of the flatbed, and then there was a loud bang as the car rolled off the ramps, giving the impression that the front end had scraped. Though it is unclear whether it did or if it was just the ramps banging the road.
Yeah.
As the driver pulls into the driveway, a motorcyclist speeds down the sidewalk, crashing directly
It's not
into
that
the
car's
A3.
fault.
You can even see the motorcyclist's head bounce off the trunk and his helmet fly off.
Wow.
Thankfully, the rider
Passing
got
on
up,
the right.
showed no apparent injuries, and
It's
could
not the
still
car's
pick up
fault.
the motorcycle. And hilariously, this happened as the Audi's owner watched from their window. A few things definitely went wrong here. The rider was speeding on the sidewalk, making the crash his fault. And even if you argue that the delivery driver should have checked to see if anyone was coming from the right, it's hard to anticipate a speeding motorcycle
it's not his
and
fault.
braking on time.
And I'm
You
sure
could
they have
also
insurance
argue
to
that
cover
the
something
delivery
like
truck
that.
was blocking the bike lane, which it was, and that's what forced the rider onto the sidewalk. But there's nowhere else for the truck to go, and in that situation, the rider would have been better off using the street instead of the sidewalk. The second issue is the helmet. It did not seem to be strapped onto the rider's head, as it quickly flew off during the crash. Now, I'm no safety engineer, but surely helmets have to stay on your head to be effective. Thankfully, no one seemed to be seriously injured, and the Audi customer, who
I
was just a
personally
bystander in the incident,
wouldn't want the car
will likely
repaired.
have
I'd
the
tell him to get me a
dealership
whole
handle
different
the
car.
issue. Since the
'Cause
customer
that's-
probably never officially signed for the car, the dealership will likely have to rectify the problem.
Of course.
But still, it's remarkable how many things went wrong during this
Well,
bizarre
even if
car
he did
delivery,
sign for
and
it,
I
he
bet
wasn't
the delivery
driving it when it
driver
happened.
has had a lot of explaining to do to his boss. Number 9. News reporting fail. We all know what
I've
it's like
seen
to
this
zone
clip
out at work
100
sometimes,
times.
but did you ever think a few seconds of daydreaming would get you fired? Well, surely Australian news reporter Natasha Exelby didn't either, until it happened to her.
I didn't know she got
When
fired
the
for it.
pre-recorded segment ended, the camera cut back quickly to Exelby. She stared at her pen for several seconds before gasping, jumping in surprise.
It looks almost
and
fake.
before quickly transitioning into sports coverage after getting caught not paying attention. Exelby managed to recover from the blooper, responding promptly and anchoring the coverage until midnight. She took the incident in good humor, even writing on Twitter to thank everyone for their support, and her network, however, did not agree. News Corp would report that Exelby was banned from future on-air roles following
She shouldn't
the
have been.
incident.
That's just the
Because the video went viral, News
People
Corp
screw
received some
up.
backlash. Dozens of journalists and even politicians took to social media to defend
right
her.
on.
After all, there were other solutions they could have taken instead of letting her
Yep.
go. Thankfully, Exelby scored a new gig with Sydney's Kiss 106.5, who even praised her for handling the attention and public
So she's
scrutiny.
probably better off.
Number 10. Kids barge in on
I've
dad's
seen this one a
interview.
lot too.
After having
It's
just
pretty
undergone
funny.
a pandemic, we all know the struggles of working at home when other family members are around. Although Professor Robert Kelly probably experienced it first in a video that went viral 4 years ago, labeling him BBC Dad. The video, which begins with Kelly offering his thoughts about the impeachment of a politician, takes a turn when his daughter begins dancing her way into the room. In an instant, the little pigtailed girl became the center of attention. Kelly then reaches behind to keep his daughter back away from the camera when a few seconds later, Kelly's toddler son
I'm sure he
joins
didn't
in
get
on the
fired
act,
for this.
bursting into the room in a rolling walker and heading straight towards the camera. Kelly
Because of
apologizes
all that
and
was
tries
going
to
on
keep
at
his
that
composure
time.
when his wife darts into the room to
It's
retrieve the
understandable.
children.
And having to
Then
do
goes
it at
over
home,
recent events on
probably
the
hard
Korean
enough.
Peninsula, with the entire scene unfolding behind him. He managed to complete the interview, but it probably was the longest 40 seconds of
Yeah,
their
that would be
father's life.
embarrassing.
If you've ever
That'd be the
had
worst
something
part about it.
embarrassing happen to you in an interview, you know that you're not alone. Number 11. News anchor loses it. In 2018, a man robbed a local market in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, and according to witnesses, he took money from an unattended cash register while he pretended to be a customer. The man managed to escape before the store owner could notify the police. However, a witness was able to describe the man, and from that, a sketch artist made a portrait. Ethan Forhetz, a news anchor responsible for delivering the news on the KY3 station, was just as mind-blown as everyone else upon seeing the image of the sketch. He paused briefly before staring back at the camera and describing the drawing. It's clear at this point that Forhetz was already trying to hold back his laughter, but he continued on
Looks
to
like
maintain
a cartoon
his composure.
character.
Forhetz then received news mid-air that the police had caught the suspect, and when KY3 placed a side-by-side comparison of the suspect's actual photo and the sketch together, that's when Forhetz lost it all. I'm not sure what's more surprising, that the drawing was enough for people to identify
Yeah,
the
it's
man
pretty accurate,
and the
actually.
suspect, or that Forhetz managed to maintain somewhat professional control. I certainly could not have done it myself.
I don't think it was his last day at
Number
work,
12.
though.
Squirrel interrupts Zoom call. In this hilarious viral TikTok video, a man goes wild when a squirrel enters his home office while he's on a Zoom call. Let's just take a second to unpack everything that's going on in the video. It seems that it's not this man's first encounter with the squirrel. He already has a baseball bat leaning against the wall beside his desk. Secondly, once the man notices the squirrel has entered the room, he screams for someone, saying that the squirrel is back. Clearly, the squirrel had been inside the house earlier, but they were not able to locate it. It appears that the man returned to work before the squirrel struck once again, leaving us with this hilarious video. He grabs the baseball bat and begins screaming, eventually jumping on his desk.
It's
And then the
Rocky
squirrel
the Flying
seems to lunge
Squirrel.
at him, causing him to yell even more. To be honest, I'm not really sure who's more scared of him at this point, the squirrel or whoever's at the other end of the Zoom call. The clip is
I
not
see
the only
squirrels
footage
all the
that
time
documents
here
this
where I
man and
live.
the squirrel. There's even an updated clip titled "The Squirrel is Back." The man's wife had been chronicling these incidents for our amusement, even working on the follow-up conversation with his coworkers. At this point, it seems a little bit personal, so stay tuned for their profile for more updates. Number 13, Wall of Wine collapses. If you've ever thought about quitting before being fired, you know that you're not alone. A CCTV camera at a restaurant in St. Petersburg, Russia, would capture the startling moment when a man pulled out one of the scores of bottles from a suspended floor-to-ceiling wine rack. He checks the label before putting
So
the
it's
bottle
just hanging?
back. However, the worker nudges the bottle above, and the ropes supporting the bottles begin to
Yep.
wobble, sending some cascading onto the
That's
floor.
a dumb
Initially,
way to
he
do
seems
that.
to steady the bottles and stop any more from falling, but when a colleague comes to help him hold them back, there appears to be a chain reaction. And within seconds, all the remaining bottles smash to the ground. The cost of damage is unknown, but it seemed to be estimated to be around 1 million rubles, which is approximately 14,000 US
Wow.
dollars. Initial reports would suggest that the wine wall was already prone to collapse due to unspecified miscalculations
that's a really
by the
bad
wine room manufacturers.
Plan.
I'm not sure if the restaurant
build
worker is
something
even
like
at fault
that.
here to begin with, and it's not such a bright idea to put hundreds of bottles of wine on a suspended wine
Really?
rack. It seems like whoever has to clean all of that up will be working
It's like they're
overtime.
just stuck in rope
Number
or
14,
something. It's dumb.
electrician, not the brightest spark. Part of an electrician's job is to plan installations properly, troubleshoot electrical problems, and install electrical systems. This electrician, however, finds out the hard way that maybe he would have to consider a different profession. The electrician wearing the striped t-shirt had his whole head in the hole where he was due to fit lights in. His back would be facing his coworker when he realized that although he had managed to get his head in, he could not angle it to free it out. He pauses for a few seconds while thinking
Well,
of a way to get
a
out
job
of the
like
hole.
that, you got to be
Instead of
able to
helping,
just
his
feel
coworker secretly films
in
the
there
struggle,
without seeing it.
trying to hold back their laughter and joking as he watches his colleague struggle to free himself. His colleague simply cannot contain his laughter when he finally faces the coworker with the top of his head in the hole. Number 15, Google Hangout mishap. If there's anything that should remind you to double check your audio and video during an online meeting, this may be it. Radio hosts for Portland's country station 98.7 The Bull were concluding a typical Google Hangout call when one of the attendees made a viral mistake. Tony Russell, Mojo Roberts, Danny Dwyer, and Jen Hayes were all signing off on their call when Russell got up from his desk, seemingly assuming another coworker would end the video conference. Instead, though, Roberts, Dwyer, and Hayes widened their eyes and laughed as they witnessed Russell's post-meeting routine of wandering around his
Nice
apartment and stretching
underwear
in his
there.
underwear, even getting a few butt scratches in. They try to remedy the situation, calling out to Russell, who doesn't hear them. Roberts can barely finish his words as he continues laughing at his barely dressed coworker. Hayes gets a hold of Russell on his cell phone, and when he picks up, he tells him that she can see his underwear. Russell turns to look back at his computer and finally sees that his 3 coworkers are still on the call watching him. He then sprints out of the camera's view. 98.7 The Bull's YouTube channel only has around 50,000 subscribers, but the mishap video racked up over 5 million views. It's clear that Russell sees the humor in the situation, as he even uploaded the viral video himself
I think it's
to
funny.
his Facebook profile.
You shouldn't lose your job
I hope
over
that
that
you had a
either.
good laugh at some of these workers' mishaps. Let us know if you've ever had anything like this happen to you. And
Yeah, let me know if you've had any bad days at work. I've had a couple that stand out really, really bad. I've talked about them before. If you want to hear about them again, let me know in the comments down below. They were really bad. And I'll make another video on it. Talk about like my worst days or something like that. Anyways, now it's time for a joke. Ladies, if you're in the shower with a man and he wants to do something nice like wash your back, just say thank you. Don't worry about all this, who are you and how'd you get in my house?
Wow!